Where did they go? The truth about vanished hikers. Every year, people head into the wilderness looking for adventure, for a connection with something raw and untamed. They follow marked trails, climb majestic peaks, and lose themselves in the beauty of the natural world. In the U.S. alone, Park Services conduct thousands of search and rescue missions a year. Most people are found. But what happens when the trail ends and they simply disappear? We're not talking about just getting lost. We're exploring the stories of hikers who vanished and the disturbing truths and unsettling questions they left behind. Some step off the path for a moment and are never seen again. Others are swallowed by landscapes they know like the back of their hand. And in some cases, the wilderness isn't the only danger lurking in the shadows. The pull of the wild is powerful. It promises solitude, a challenge, and a reset from the noise of modern life. But that promise comes with an unspoken risk, an understanding with nature that acknowledges its immense and unforgiving power. For most people, a hike is a rejuvenating experience. For a tragic few, it's their last. The stories of these vanished hikers are more than cautionary tales. They're profound mysteries that challenge our understanding of survival, endurance, and the line between a simple accident and something much more sinister. In this video, we're looking at some of the most baffling disappearances in the history of outdoor exploration. We'll journey to the misty peaks of the Great Smoky Mountains, the rugged, sun-scorched canyons of Arizona, and the iconic granite cliffs of Yosemite National Park. We'll examine 3 distinct cases, each showing a different facet of this phenomenon. We'll start with a teenage girl on a school field trip whose disappearance seems to defy all logical explanation. Then, we'll explore the case of a park ranger who vanished from his own territory under circumstances that suggest foul play. Finally, we will confront a mystery from one of the world's most famous parks, where a young girl on a group trip vanished in plain sight, leaving behind a single, baffling clue. Through these stories, we'll explore the real reasons hikers vanish. Are these events tragic accidents, the result of a wrong turn or a sudden fall? Are they the consequence of nature's unpredictable fury, a storm, a hidden crevasse, or an animal? Or, in the most chilling possibility, are some of these hikers victims of human predators who use the vast, unpoliceable wilderness as their hunting ground? The truth is often more complex and disturbing than we can imagine. Let's venture into the heart of these enduring mysteries. Section 1. A school trip to nowhere. The case of Trenny Gibson. Our first case takes us to the ancient, rolling mountains of eastern Tennessee, to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's a place of breathtaking beauty, with its famous blue haze hanging over forested peaks. But on October 8, 1976, this idyllic setting became the backdrop for a mystery that has endured for nearly half a century. This is the story of Teresa Trenny Lynn Gibson. Trenny was a bright, level-headed 16-year-old from Knoxville. She loved the outdoors and had a clear vision for her future, with plans to study landscape architecture. On that fateful Friday, she and 38 classmates from an ornamental horticulture class took a field trip into the park. Their destination was Andrews Bald, a scenic meadow reached by a 1.8-mile hike along the Forney Ridge Trail, starting from the parking lot at Clingman's Dome, the park's highest point. The day was overcast and drizzly, but the students were in high spirits, chaperoned by their teacher, Wayne Dunlap. By most accounts, he was the only adult for nearly 40 students. They hiked to the Bald, had lunch, and started back around 3 p.m. Trenny, an enthusiastic hiker, walked ahead of the main group, eager to get back to the bus. She was wearing blue jeans, a blue blouse, a striped sweater, and a heavy, borrowed plaid jacket that belonged to a male classmate, Robert Simpson, who she'd spent much of the day with. The sequence of events during that final stretch is where things get blurry. As Trini walked ahead, the main group paused for a student who felt unwell. A classmate, Anita, watched Trini from a distance. She saw her stop on the trail as it veered left. Anita said Trini looked intently to her right, off the trail, as if something had caught her eye. Then, she watched as Trini stepped off the path and into the thick vegetation. Anita didn't think much of it, assuming Trini was looking at a plant or taking a shortcut. But when Trini didn't reappear, Anita paused at the spot where she'd last seen her. The undergrowth was dense, with no side path. She called Trini's name, but got no reply. Still, no one panicked. Many students figured Trini had found another way back and would be at the bus. By 3:40 p.m., 10 minutes after the scheduled departure, it was clear Trini wasn't there. Concern began to grow. The teacher and another student hiked back towards the bald, calling her name, but found nothing. By 4:30 p.m., as fog rolled in and daylight faded, they called the National Park Service. Trini Gibson was officially missing. What followed was one of the largest search operations in the park's history. Over the next several weeks, more than 300 volunteers, the U.S. Army, and the Marine Corps joined the effort. Helicopters scoured the landscape, while ground teams and 6 specialized dog teams combed the rugged terrain. The search was hampered by rain and fog, which made visibility poor and the ground treacherous. Almost immediately, the search dogs provided a tantalizing and ultimately frustrating clue. 3 separate dog teams picked up Trini's scent near where she was last seen. But the scent didn't lead deeper into the wilderness, as you'd expect if she'd just gotten lost. Instead, the dogs followed her scent along the trail to where it intersected with the Appalachian Trail. From there, the trail led toward the Clingman's Dome Observation Tower, and then, perplexingly, down to the main road, about 1.5 miles from the parked bus. At the edge of the road, the scent vanished. It was as if she had gotten into a vehicle. This discovery dramatically shifted the investigation. The likelihood of a hiking accident seemed to shrink, and the terrifying possibility of abduction loomed large. The FBI was called in on October 12th. The leading theory was foul play. The scent trail ending at the road strongly suggested she was taken from the park in a car. Perhaps someone had lured or forced her from the trail, waiting for the area to clear before walking her to the road. The heavy fog that afternoon would have provided perfect cover. Investigators looked closely at individuals known to be in the area and even people in Trini's social circle. Another student, Kelvin Bowman, had a disturbing history with the Gibson family. Trini's mother had shot him in the foot a year earlier when he allegedly tried to break into their home. He had reportedly made threats against Trini, and some students claimed to see him following the school bus that day. However, the school's principal insisted Bowman was in class, and the teacher was adamant that no car had followed them. Another person of interest was Robert Simpson, the 17-year-old student whose jacket Trini was wearing. After she vanished, he claimed he'd wandered off to track a bear. Later, Trini's comb, an item she always carried, was found on the dashboard of his car. He claimed she'd given it to him to hold. While his behavior struck some as odd, he was never charged. A second theory was that Trini did get lost, but her journey ended in foul play. Perhaps she took a wrong turn, became disoriented, and ended up on the road where she accepted a ride from someone with violent intentions. This aligns with the dogs losing her scent at the road. A third theory, that she ran away, was also considered but seemed unlikely. Trini left behind her purse, makeup, all her clothes, and over $1,000 in her bank account. She had plans for the future and was excited about getting a car for Christmas. It made no sense for her to orchestrate a disappearance on a field trip, leaving everything behind. The most compelling argument against the ran away and got lost theories was what wasn't found. Despite one of the most exhaustive searches the park had ever seen, not a single scrap of her clothing, not her shoes, not the heavy jacket, was ever recovered. As the veteran park ranger who led the search, Dwight McCarter, noted, this total lack of physical evidence is what convinced him she was abducted. The forest, he knew, almost always leaves a trace. For decades, the case has remained frozen. Trini Gibson walked onto the Forney Ridge Trail on a damp afternoon and, in a few fateful moments, stepped out of her life and into a deep, enduring mystery. What happened in that foggy forest? Was she lured away by someone she knew? Or was she the victim of a random, monstrous crime? The Great Smoky Mountains hold their secrets close, and the truth about where Trini Gibson went remains one of its most haunting. Section 2. The Vanished Ranger, the Case of Paul Fugate. For our next case, we travel southwest to the starkly beautiful landscape of Arizona's Chiricahua National Monument. On January 13, 1980, a man whose job was to protect this wilderness vanished from it, in what has become the most prominent case of a National Park Service ranger disappearing without a trace. This is the perplexing story of Paul Braxton Fugate. Paul Fugate, 41 at the time, was a bit of a rebel who sometimes clashed with his supervisors. He'd worked at other parks before being transferred to Chiricahua, whose rugged solitude seemed to suit him. On that Sunday, it was the park's off-season. Paul was the only permanent staff member on duty, along with a seasonal aide at the visitors' center. Around 2 p.m., Paul told the aide he was going on a foot patrol, a routine part of his job. He said if he wasn't back by 4:30 p.m., she should close the visitors' center without him. He was last seen walking towards the park's entrance, wearing his standard gray and green NPS uniform. He didn't take his radio or other equipment. It was a seemingly ordinary day, but Paul Fugate never returned. When 4:30 p.m. came and went, the aide closed up as instructed. The alarm wasn't raised until his wife, Dodie, called that evening and learned he hadn't come home. The next morning, a full-scale search and rescue operation was launched. The search was immense, involving the Sheriff's Department, the Forest Service, Border Patrol, and many volunteers. They searched the sprawling 12,000-acre monument, but found nothing. No definitive footprints. No torn clothing. No sign of a fall or an animal attack. No trace of Paul Fugate whatsoever. The complete absence of evidence was baffling. Paul was an experienced ranger familiar with the terrain. For him to get lost and die without leaving a single trace seemed highly improbable. From the start, investigators suspected foul play. The Chiricahua Monument, near the U.S. Mexico border, was a known corridor for drug and human trafficking. The leading theory was that Ranger Fugate, on his patrol, stumbled upon something he wasn't meant to see and was silenced. This theory was bolstered by some strange reports. A park employee claimed to have seen Paul around 4 p.m. on the day he vanished, not in the park, but in a pickup truck speeding away from the monument. The witness said Paul was slumped between two men and looked sad and dejected. Under hypnosis, the witness recalled one man having a Kenny Rogers-type beard. However, this lead never resulted in any suspects. The official response from the National Park Service was, to many, shockingly callous. Instead of treating him as a fallen officer, the NPS seemed to prefer the theory that he had just walked away from his life. Paul's personal life was complicated. He and his wife had an open marriage, and Paul was having an affair with a park aide who was pregnant with his child. This led some, including the lead NPS investigator, to believe he had orchestrated his own disappearance. This official stance had devastating consequences for his wife. A little over a year after he vanished, the NPS formally fired Paul Fugate for abandoning his post. They then sent Dodie a bill for $6,925, demanding she repay the salary she'd received while he was listed as missing. It took her years of legal battles to have Paul declared legally dead and to receive his benefits. For decades, the case languished. Theories continued to swirl. Did he flee to start a new life? Was he murdered by drug traffickers? Or was there another, darker possibility tied to his complicated personal life? In 1983, a county official announced they believed Fugate had been murdered and that arrests were imminent. But no arrests were ever made. Then, in 2018, nearly 40 years after he disappeared, the NPS announced that new information had prompted them to renew their request for public help. They increased the reward for information leading to his whereabouts, or the conviction of those responsible, to $60,000. What this new information was has never been disclosed, but it was enough to breathe life into a very cold case. To this day, Paul Fugate's case remains unsolved. His disappearance feels disturbingly grounded in human darkness. The evidence, though circumstantial, points strongly towards a violent end. He wasn't an inexperienced hiker. He was a federal officer on duty in his own park. The fact that he could be taken, seemingly in broad daylight, and made to disappear so completely speaks to a terrifying level of criminal audacity. Was he a victim of a chance encounter with criminals? Or was the truth tangled in the complexities of his own life? The silent, watching rock formations of Chiricahua hold the answer. The mysteries we've explored so far are deeply unsettling. They remind us of the fine line between adventure and tragedy in our planet's most remote places. If you find these investigations into unsolved cases captivating, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future episodes. And we want to hear from you. What are your theories on the disappearances of Trini Gibson and Paul Fugate? Let us know in the comments. Now, the next case takes us to one of the most famous parks in the world, where a young girl vanished from a large group in the middle of the day, proving that even in the most popular places, the wilderness can swallow you whole. Section 3. The Girl Who Walked into the Trees. The Case of Stacey Harris. For our final story, we go to one of America's most revered natural cathedrals, Yosemite National Park in California. It's a place of towering granite cliffs and ancient sequoias, attracting millions of visitors. But on July 17, 1981, this bustling park became the setting for a baffling disappearance that proves even in a crowd, a person can vanish without a trace. This is the story of 14-year-old Stacey Harris. Stacey, an outgoing girl from Saratoga, California, who loved photography and horseback riding, was on a 4-day group trip with her father, George, and several others. On the first day, the group rode on horseback to the Sunrise High Sierra Camp, a cluster of cabins situated at 9,400 feet, planning to spend the night. After arriving, Stacey wanted to take photos of a nearby lake. A 77-year-old man from their group, Gerald Stewart, went with her. A short distance from the cabins, the elderly man felt tired and sat down on a rock to rest. Stacey told him she was just going down to the lake and would be back in a few minutes. She walked on, disappearing behind a line of trees. A tour guide working nearby saw her standing on a rock, and then she was gone. She was never seen again. When Stacey didn't return after 20 to 30 minutes, Gerald became concerned and went back to the cabins to alert the group. They began searching immediately, even asking another group of hikers coming from the direction Stacy had gone, but no one had seen her. They quickly reported her missing to park rangers, and a massive official search was launched. For 9 days, hundreds of people, helicopters, and dog teams scoured the rugged terrain. But the search yielded almost nothing. The only trace of Stacy ever found was the lens cap from her camera, discovered on the trail near where she was headed. There were no footprints and no signs of a struggle. The dogs couldn't pick up a scent, which was blamed on the dry, dusty conditions. In one of the most popular areas of a world-famous park, a teenage girl had simply vanished. Investigators were left with a frustrating lack of evidence and a handful of unsatisfying theories. One theory was an animal attack, as Yosemite has a large population of black bears, but searchers found no blood or torn clothing to support this. Foul play seemed unlikely given the remoteness of the location from any main roads and the number of people in the area. While the 77-year-old man she was with was initially looked at, he was quickly cleared, as witnesses saw him sitting on the rock while Stacy walked on alone. Park officials also floated the idea that Stacy may have run away, citing alleged troubles at school and missing her boyfriend. Her family disputed this, and it seemed improbable that she would choose to run away in the middle of a group trip, wearing hiking boots she'd just put on at her father's insistence. The most plausible, yet unprovable, theory is that she suffered a simple misadventure, a slip or a fall in the treacherous, rocky landscape, and ended up in a place so hidden that no searcher could find her. To this day, her case file, reportedly thousands of pages long, has never been released to the public, fueling speculation about what investigators may have found or failed to find. Stacy Harris walked a short distance from her group to take a picture and stepped into an enduring mystery, leaving behind only a camera lens cap and a haunting question. How can someone just disappear in plain sight? The stories of Trini Gibson, Paul Fugate, and Stacy Harris are more than just tragedies. They are windows into the vast and often terrifying unknown that lies at the edge of our mapped world. They represent 3 distinct, yet equally unsettling, ways a person can be erased by the wilderness. Trini Gibson's case suggests the chilling possibility of human evil intersecting with a moment of vulnerability. A teenage girl on a school trip, surrounded by peers, vanishes in the blink of an eye, and the evidence points not to an accident, but to an abduction where the Smokies were used as cover. Paul Fugate's disappearance is a story of professional duty met with suspected criminal violence. A park ranger, a steward of the land, swallowed by the very territory he was sworn to protect. His case highlights the perils faced by those who police our most remote areas, suggesting he was a victim not of the wilderness, but of a brutal conflict he inadvertently walked into. And then there is the case of Stacy Harris, a mystery that demonstrates how even the most popular and well-traveled landscapes can hold deadly secrets. It shows that a person can disappear from a group in broad daylight, leaving behind almost no trace, a chilling reminder that proximity to others offers no guarantee of safety. These cases, and countless others like them, show how a person can simply vanish. The reasons are multifaceted: a human error, a sudden turn in the weather, a tragic accident, or the calculated evil of another person. The wild places of our world demand respect. They aren't theme parks. They are powerful, indifferent environments where survival is never guaranteed. The stories of those who never returned are not just meant to scare us, but to remind us of that truth. They are a call for preparation, caution, and humility. And they leave us with a lingering question. How many more stories are out there, buried under the snow or hidden in the forest, waiting to be told? What other secrets are the mountains keeping?